We're doing what?
I don't even have a script.
We got this covered. Don't
I
worry
know.
about it.
I think
I'm
I've got
not.
it
I'm not the
memorized.
one who
We're in the
implemented
digital age
Asana.
now.
All right.
So you want me to
All
do
right,
the
professional.
Ready?
Professional.
There's no music. That was anticlimactic.
Where's our professionalism here?
Welcome back to
changing
Come and
things
Brew It
up.
Radio.
There we go.
Hey.
Welcome back to Come and Brew It Radio. Coming to you from what are we saying?
Welcome back to Come and Brew It Radio, coming to you from Texas Brewing Inc. in Haltom City, Texas. Don't forget to like us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify, and share us on social media with all your friends. In tonight's episode, for a nice change, we have some good news about our local brewing scene, some humble bragging to do about our local competition, and a few fun beers to sample. We're also going to get into the long-awaited Stout series we've been working on for so long. Whether they're sweet, dry, tropical, imperial, blonde, or Russian, these beers offer a wide range of complex flavors, alcohol strength, and drinkability. With all these great flavors and options, they are always very popular among homebrewers and drinkers alike. Since they're becoming harder to come by from commercial breweries, now we have even more reason to brew our own. So we're going to talk about recipe development, yeast selection, and aging options. So finish off your corned beef, lock up your leprechaun, pour yourself a pint of the black stuff, and let's get to it.
Yeah!
Yeah.
Rule.
That's how you do it, dude.
Okay.
That's how you do
It's
it.
important to drop your phone at the
You
end.
changed the intro.
Well, I had to include Spotify.
Okay.
And also I was doing it from memory. So
Well, pretty good.
And just the sweet, dry, tropical, imperial, blonde, or Russian, that kind of sounds like a smorgasbord of women there.
right?
I mean,
It sounds like a
hey now.
You
you got a wide variety there.
You would have a
A
gun
hole
right
in
to the back of
in
your
the
neck.
back of the-
dude.
yeah.
I think you could do with some more Irish stereotypes in there as well.
yeah, you're right. You're right. I could have. It was
Yeah.
best I could do on short notice. I figured once I lapsed into leprechauns, I had
That was
covered
it. Yeah.
covered all the territory.
You
Yeah.
See, I
just,
thought-
you
I
just
thought we were-
totally offended Austin. I'm just saying.
Which one?
Well,
the whole
why,
city,
Why? Because
or
he said that's
the
why they
entire
locked me up before the show.
By the way, I gotta say, you guys looked better tonight when it was like on the screen. Just
Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
black screen. Yeah, for sure.
We can't always please everyone. In
Eric,
fact, we can seldom please
That's
anyone.
why we have a voice or a face
Eric's
for
in the
radio,
mood.
right?
Eric's in the mood.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
We got the booth throwing stones right off the bat.
As long as your name isn't Apple Corp or
Apple
Microsoft.
Macrosoft or
Yeah, then
Opal.
you're all good.
All right, so welcome back. This is our second show of the year, and we're trying to get things rolling again. We're going to get into the Stout series that we talked about before the end of last year. It's taken us a while to get to it. We've obviously had a lot to deal with in the last couple of months here, so I'm really looking forward to this. We kind of started off with the Stout parts as trying to be basic and just the kind of the core basic stout recipes, but I think what this has grown into is let's just talk about all kinds of different stouts you can brew, because this time of year is great for them.
yes.
And personally, I like it when we get into the cold months and I can start brewing these beers again, because I forget how much I like having a stout on tap, how much fun they are to brew, how much fun the recipes are to write, and that kind of thing. So I'm really looking
Especially-
forward to this.
I especially love how much they change. You make them, and then you go, I don't know if I like it. Let me leave it alone for a week. Try it again. I don't know if I like it yet. Leave it alone for a week. I can only have one this week. And it really changes
Kind
over
of
time.
mellows out
Yeah.
and changes.
The
Yeah.
one I brought when I first put it on tap, it tasted like whiskey
Just
and
a
cola.
real piece of shit.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, really. And now it tastes like a real stout. It didn't taste like a real stout before. It tasted like a blend of whiskey and Coke, which I'll bring it out right now.
Well, now before we get into the stouts here, let's.
Uh,
uh,
I would say
Don't
stop the man. You said something interesting about the stouts that, the is stout season, and I totally agree. Except in my house, it's stout season 365 because of behind me. She's a stout fan, but that's what I love about this.
You mean
this
your wife,
episode
the
is,
brewer?
yeah,
Or your fiancé, the brewer. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Fiancé, the brewer, yes.
But what I love about this episode is not all stouts have to be the 10%. I think we're going to show you some.
Yes.
Sir, you're deaf.
That's
Well.
it. Pull out a pubic hair.
But anyways, that's what I love about this episode is not all stouts have to be big and 10%, barrel aged
Yeah,
and boozy.
I
and
agree with you. We're going to kind of cover the whole range here. And really, in terms of recipe development, too, it really spans from the most basic to the most complex that you can get,
Exactly.
depending on what you're doing, too. So that is what I like about them also. My wife is a big stout fan, too, but I've learned not to brew beers for her because she'll have me brew a stout in July, and then it's 105 outside, and I've got a stout on tap, and I don't want to drink it. So I only brew them during this time of year. So
Next time, let me know when
You
it's
know what's much
105
easier
you
to
have
drink
stout
than
on
a
tap.
stout? A hard seltzer, I'm just saying.
a SETI hard seltzer at that.
you were crushing the Trulies when we first got
Yes,
here.
that's
I
very
crushed
true.
one. when I
You
got
know
here.
what that means, right? Mike knows
It's
what that means.
it's about to get unruly in
Get
here.
unruly. Yeah.
White girl drunk.
So, speaking of recent happenings, and
Yes.
this is talking about the seltzer. This isn't in our recent happenings, but a local brewery put a hard seltzer on tap just a couple days ago, the Fort, and they had to give Cedric some credit for helping him write his recipe.
I
So.
saw that, and I tried to ask him about it when I got here today, and he was surprisingly humble. He didn't want to say, "Yeah, that's mine." He was like, "Well, yeah, it's gonna."
Was it?
happen here
It
and
wasn't the
there.
famous one, was it?
He actually
No,
kind of
no, this wasn't
Okay.
the Cosby.
He
Okay.
actually kind of turned it around to talking about how everybody steals his recipes, which was not the case with this one.
How can you steal what's given away for free?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know.
You know, it's Cedric, so
Yeah.
we love him.
We do.
He's
indeed.
aggrieved. But let's get on to our first.
We did have a brewery though that did give me some credit. I'm just saying. you
That's
know,
right. We were
Yeah.
drinking this earlier.
Oh,
Stubby's
yeah.
got
Yeah.
mad hops from Funky Picnic. Has ruined my palate.
It tasted good though.
But it was great,
And
man. I
when,
liked it.
when I questioned Harper about the name, he just basically said because Stubby does have mad hops. So I couldn't argue that. So
Sure, come on in, bud.
Come on
We're
in,
recording.
Sean, come on.
in.
Anytime you want.
Anytime you want.
Okay, yeah, you come back later. It's cool.
we have Shawn from Cowtown maybe popping in, maybe not. Well, we'll see.
And Nick is already here.
Yes.
Nick
But
showed
but
up
I
on
want to
time.
I want to get to my favorite recent happening here because we've had so much downer news in recent happenings with breweries, with all these closing breweries and restaurants that we like, that we've got a really cool one of our own here, Sandra, brewing a beer over at Panther Island Brewing that got some national attention recently, which was with Beaver Nuggets. For those of you who are not in this part of the country,
You
Beaver
need to get
Nuggets
here.
sound retarded, but we've got a chain of gigantic gas stations called Buc-ee's that make these things called Beaver Nuggets that are absolutely delicious. It's the best, like,
It's not as good
road.
as a jerky.
It's the best road trip snack that I know of.
Which is what they named the beer as Road Trip Snacks.
Get out, really?
That is actually what the beer is now named.
I actually didn't know that. So, Sandra, you want to tell us about it here real quick?
Yeah, it's a 6%.
Is your? I don't think her mic is on, man. Try it again.
Yeah, we might have unplugged it. Who knows?
Oh, come on.
Just come over here and
Come
steal
on
his
over here.
mic.
Come on. Yeah, you need a mic.
I mean, actually, it's plugged in, but whatever.
There you go. All right.
Let me get close, like we're engaged or something. So it's a 6% brown ale that we used beaver nuggets in the mash, and we blew the keg in about 12 hours.
So, Beaver Nuggets, for those you don't know, are kind of like corn pops,
Yeah,
basically,
they're
right?
like a
It's just like more
It's-
puff corn, please.
yeah, it's like a it's like a caramel maple Cheeto. So
So, how did you
Maple
use them in the
Cheeto?
beer?
we put them in the mash.
Did
So
y'all grind them up or just put them in whole?
we put them in whole.
Okay.
And maybe ate 2 or 3 dozen bags of them.
That's allowed.
But like I said, we blew the keg in about 12 hours or less. So we're now working on artwork, and it will be brewed on the big system, and will be distributed. So looking at March, late March.
So did
April.
you guys actually co-brand it with Buc-ee's or?
No, it's one of those things. Do it and then ask permission later. So, we did it with their lawyers have contacted us and said we are not affiliated with the beer, but they're nice and They were nice but firm. So it's Road Trip Snacks is the name of it, and we're hoping to work out something with them. I've heard our beer will be in the Buc-ee's stores once
that's
it's
cool.
canned.
Ooh.
So
Awesome. Good deal.
They say they don't want to be affiliated until they try it.
I swear that I actually did not know that's what it was called when I said that, because that's the only time I eat those is when I'm on a road trip. I'm like, all right, I'm going to spoil myself a little bit and drink and eat this
Until you're sick.
food that is terrible for me. It tastes awful.
Yeah, so
I mean, it tastes wonderful. I meant not.
So,
awful.
so jokingly, Johnny, Ryan's sister, the one of the owners and head brewers, she was asked. They were joking about names, and I joked, call it Road Trip Snacks, and then it comes out this week that that's what they named it. So she owes me some licensing rights, or I don't know,
Yeah.
something
good luck with
just for
Nuts or
bullshit
something.
and throwing out a good name out there.
Or just like Nigel would say, a good swift kick in the balls.
There you go. That'll work. and I offer to deliver that. If,
Isn't it the Bullocks?
it
Good
can
Swift
be.
Kick and the Bullocks.
It'd be
The
bollocks.
Jacobs.
Bollocks.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
He says
not
balls,
Sandra Bullock's.
balls quite often.
That's
Yeah,
now.
true.
balls,
That's
balls will
true.
work too.
Well, they'll work.
Not with a boot in them, they won't.
Yeah. So that's what he's wearing today, man. is
So
combat
that
boots.
is your second batch that you've done on the pilot system there that sold out like immediately, right?
yes,
All right, that's very
it
cool.
was actually the second batch on the pilot system that I brewed. So
Awesome,
2 for 2.
very good.
And see, that's why I'm surly tonight, is because her first pale ale that she did called Amber Lynn, named after her daughter. Like, I had a whole video presentation I was supposed to have for tonight.
All right, so I think we also
thanks,
had
Microsoft.
in a recent happenings.
Obviously, Michael can't hear me.
It's okay. Michael,
yeah, he's
gonna
talking.
step on you.
But yeah, right when I got to dogging Microsoft and Apple, then Michael stepped in. Good job, dude.
Probably timed
Go,
just
man.
right,
Go.
actually.
Yeah, that was perfect, actually. Yeah.
So at any rate, we will have that video at some point. It's just it wasn't able to make it tonight due to technical difficulties, but
Yeah, that's what it is.
very nice, very nice. And then we've also got we've got Shawn and Nick in here from Cowtown, and they were recently recognized.
And James.
also.
Don't
And
forget
James.
James.
I'm sorry.
James in the corner.
I'm sorry. So Forbes recently released an article about 15 Texas breweries that you must hit, and our local favorite, Cowtown, made the list there, which I thought was pretty damn cool. With Forbes mentioning our favorite guys, and then also in Dallas here, Brain Dead and Pedicolis, which are two of my other favorites. Not as much of a favorite. I'd say maybe like combined, they're 3/4 of the favorite. That you're my favorite. if I had to put a number to it, you know, gun to my head and all that. But
And it's one of those for on that same point. I went to Brain Dead last weekend, and it was great. I had really good beers, but it was an hour train ride plus a 10-minute scooter ride through downtown Dallas. Cowtown's literally
Wait a
on my
minute,
way
wait,
home.
Back that up a little bit. You rode a scooter through Dallas?
I did.
Oh man,
It was actually a lot of fun. You know, on a Saturday afternoon.
Just take a little bit, Brandon.
that's
Hey.
just on the way there though, right?
Oh no, on the way home, on the way back.
So you did the drunken scooter ride?
Yeah, that was a lot of
Ooh,
fun. That was
wow.
even more fun.
Your face is intact and everything. That's impressive.
It is.
Who am I
You know,
passing the beer to?
Anyone
I
you
haven't
want.
had
This is the start of the Snowmageddon staggered vertical.
So we've got a couple of very
Staggered.
tired.
Lord, how old is this?
That's a 16,
Oh my God.
and I got a 17 here as well.
We've got a couple of very tired cast members tonight that are probably going to dip out
20.
at the break. So we're going to go ahead and do this now, even though we're not into our stouts yet. We're going to do a vertical. Of
We can still drink
Snowmageddon.
stouts.
So listeners of the show going way
It's
back
actually
should,
pretty
It
damn
went
good.
that way.
should know Snowmageddon. We've had Fritz
Stubby,
talk
don't
about it on the show here.
Stubby, don't hoard it. You know.
Oh, sorry. Bollocks.
So this is from our local RAR brewery, and
That's the 17.
the recipe is from Nick and James
Lalonde, yeah.
James Lalonde
And Nick Goodman. Yeah.
and Nick Goodman. It was kind of in memory of the
Just little
the
pause,
year
it's
that
gotta go
the
round.
snow came down and caved in the roof
Yeah,
of the,
it was
of
10
the
years
RAR
ago.
brewery. Was that 10 years ago
They
now?
just had
Okay.
their the anniversary, 10-year
Okay.
anniversary of the
I remember
roof
going to the
collapsing.
grocery store and them telling me, yeah, we're going to be out of RAR beer for a while because the brewery collapsed. That was before I knew y'all, actually.
Yeah.
And
Definitely before like social media was big, and you would have found out through that.
Oh, actually, so that was a big deal. So you guys know Austin. I mean, he was in all of the videos for what brewers do when they don't have beer to brew. I mean,
Oh,
it was
that's
like
right.
a whole series.
That's right.
of
I
it.
saw one of those
And
recently.
Austin looked like a baby.
That's right. He did.
That they were doing beer Olympics, I think, in one
Beer
of them.
Olympics.
Beer Olympics
yes,
was
yeah.
uh-huh.
They had beard growing contests and all kind of stuff like that.
Brandon,
So, yeah, I mean, it was a
they're over
huge.
there.
It was a huge thing. I mean, think about this. 10 years ago, there was only 2 or 3 breweries in all of Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So that was a big deal, and it was actually a blessing in disguise for him. I'm sure Fritz would tell you that too. So
Yeah,
it
well,
was
we've
the
had him on
greatest-
the show talk about
yeah,
that before.
It was It was great. A lot of people, you know, we talked about that. You know, the whole deal with the roof collapse.
Where's the
and,
17?
it was a great deal for him because a lot of people in Dallas Fort Worth they're like, what, we have a brewery in Fort Worth? So it was actually a lot of name recognition that they got for that. So it was actually a blessing in disguise for them.
Did you get the 17?
No, I did not.
Okay. So what this is basically a big chewy oatmeal stout. It's just a nice, straightforward, kind of high ABV.
How big is it, ABV wise?
Well, this crowler you just gave me says 8.6%, so that's pretty up there.
So, and if you guys you guys are interested in this, we actually have a version of this recipe. So this is actually the imperialized version of the original recipe. The original recipe is, what is it called?
Snowstorm.
Snowstorm stout.
Yeah.
So that's our oatmeal stout, but it's really good. But what they did is they took that version of that recipe that if you can get it as a kit at the store, and they just imperialized it. So I think I like both different versions. I think they're both different. They have different qualities. But you know, that's
And then
what it is.
I've had this beer a couple times barrel aged.
isn't that the Angry Santa? Is that?
No, the Angry Santa is the
Barrel aged Snowmageddon's awesome.
yeah.
Is it just called Barrel Aged Snowmageddon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bourbon barrel aged Snowmageddon.
Yeah, and
Wow,
it's-
these have aged really well.
they really have the
They've been
si-
kept cold. I mean, they've
okay.
they've been in the fridge all the time.
the
They're really
16 to me definitely there's a difference between the 16 and 17.
Oh, without a doubt. The 16's about to turn a corner. It needed
yes,
to be opened
it,
up.
yeah, It very much was right there.
So I need to complain to Heish that he can't keep a beer longer than 4 years.
I think you should.
Okay,
I really do
I'll
think
do
you should.
that.
I think he's going to be really receptive
Yeah,
to that.
the first
feedback,
one, the
too.
first one's starting to get kind of whiny character, but
Yeah, that's what I
no,
was getting a
it
little bit.
still tastes good. It's caramel.
And we're going to talk about this later in the episode when we really do get into stouts and recipe development and the idea of how long are you want to keep it and how do you adjust your recipe accordingly, because some of those really harsh or really intense roasted flavors do turn fairly quickly.
I actually prefer
upon aging.
the last two more so than the fresher one.
Oh, really? The 16 to 17?
I think the 17 is right it's in the groove.
The 17's really delicious.
The mouthfeel is very different. The fresh one has got this
yeah.
thick, creamy mouthfeel, and the rest of it, the other two haven't. They've
I
lost
do
that.
agree with you on that. Yeah.
The two olders definitely feel like you expect a aged stout to feel.
Yeah.
And I think the context is important too. Like if I was sitting in front of a fire, I think I would enjoy the older ones a little bit more. I actually, of these three, the fresh one is my favorite.
It's very nice. Yeah, it is.
It's really good.
See, and to me, the 17 was the middle one was right where it should be. The fresh one's really good. I like the mouthfeel. I like the creaminess to it. But that 17 was really a sweet spot.
See, to me, it's 18 in life. You know it.
You got it. You're supposed to say it again, then I say you know.
No, because then I'd have to go up there.
Then we have to pay royalties, right? Yeah.
All right, I know we took a slightly left turn there.
Yeah, it's gonna be one of those nights, y'all. Just buckle in and get ready.
Did we get through recent happenings?
No, we didn't. We
All
didn't.
right.
I
Keep
say I
going
think
on.
there's one more, isn't there?
There's a couple more.
There's three more, but we'll see. How many
Those
of
are the
we
ones
go
I
into.
know about. The most important of the recent happenings, which happened just a few days after the last episode.
How have we
Which
forgotten
I'm gonna
that?
go ahead and
did.
I'm gonna go ahead and let Mike take this in the seat of honor here because
Yeah, so we you guys have heard us talk about Iron Mash. I don't think we've had a big discussion about this year's Iron Mash, But a few days after the last episode, we had the Iron Mash competition. So as we were going around trying all the beers, we had 2 teams enter. We had the Come and Brew It team, which consisted of Brandon. We had we had 3 teams enter. Sorry, Nigel ran the event, and then we had Eric and his wife were on a team, and then we had the Come and Brew It team, which was Brandon,
me, Chris, Justin, Greg, and
Trimble.
James Trimble, who has never been on the show before, but is a good friend of ours.
Yeah.
And your father-in-law.
and
Oh yes, and my Mormon father-in-law, the world's only Mormon homebrewer.
So that was that team. So Sandra and I signed up, and we were going to enter, and we ended up getting Tyler and then Brock from the shop and Brock's brew buddy Dave to be on our team, and we were B team brewing, and we were B team because Come and Brew It finished 2nd place last year, and hey, we had a lot to live up for. So on the awards day, it ends up turning out that Come and Brew It Radio won 2nd place.
Second time in a row. Thank you.
Repeat, baby.
Second year in a row they finished in 2nd place, but B Team Brewing ended up winning it. So we
First place.
We won Iron Mash this year, which was
And
super
it
cool.
was delicious.
Yeah, so let's talk about the beer a little bit.
Definitely.
So the way the competition was structured this year, and this was really a stroke of genius on Nigel's part, I got to say,
Really well done.
creative and really well done, was that there was all kinds of list of ingredients. You had all your base malts, your hops, your yeast, and your special ingredients, and everything cost a certain amount of money, and we were all given fake money with Nigel's face on it. Which
What do you mean fake money?
Not
It was-
all of it had Nigel's face.
Yes.
I think some of it didn't. One of them have Stubby's face on it.
No, it
it
had
had the
Fritz's
Texas-
face.
Oh,
Fritz's
Fritz's
face.
face.
Chris's face, yeah.
We-
And the
then-
Texas Brewing logo.
And we had 3 sponsors, 3 gracious sponsors that we really do need to thank. Obviously, Stubby and Texas Brewing.
Omega.
Ra and Sons Brewing, of course, where we are hosted. And Omega Yeast graciously sponsored us this year for the first time. So thank you to all 3 of those.
You had a certain amount of money to spend on all your ingredients, including the specialty ingredients, which were Fruit Loops, craisins, or you were given sections of barrel staves that had been used by RAR. So you had to craft your recipe based within a certain budget. And
Because for those that haven't heard us talk about Iron Mash, basically you have to create a beer per BJCP style highlighting the specialty ingredients.
No, it's
So
just
we
like
don't-
Iron Chef.
Yeah.
Exactly.
we don't have any idea what ingredients we're going to get until the day we show up to brew, and that includes malts. Malts have been all over the place over the years in terms of what we've gotten. You never know what you're going to get. Yeast, there's some years been a very limited selection of yeast. Some years been a wider selection. Hops are the same thing. This year, the hops, we weren't given the names of any of the
Yeah,
hops.
that
we
was
were
a
just
really
given,
cool twist.
given the descriptions.
I got to tell you, I thought when we talked about that a little bit, Nigel, I was like, they probably could figure it out from the descriptions, but they went to a really deep thing to really try to not make sure when you Google this description of the hop, it wouldn't come up.
Well, you took out the most prominent.
Yeah, so what we found is anytime you put 3 flavor descriptors into Google,
it would come up
it
with
would
the hop.
automatically come up with the hop every single time. So we took the most prominent one out
Yeah.
and just gave 2 flavor descriptors.
So if you Googled it, it wouldn't come up.
In very, very few cases.
But
it came
personally, having the alpha acids and the description of what it tastes like, I thought, giddy up.
That's-
Let's do
yeah.
it, man. That's the
Well,
way
but
to do it.
I think when I always try to help Nigel with this every year, or whoever's doing the Iron Mash, and one of the things that we try to do is push people out of
Established comfort zone.
just out of the comfort zone and try something different.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, when people are doing they're brewing their beer like, oh, I got to use Citra, or I got to use this.
Yeah,
or
I try and get people. The 2 years I've run it now is I've tried to
Right.
get people out of their house beer.
Right. And I know this is one of your famous things you always tell me, Brandon. What do you say?
You screwed me again, Stubblefield.
Every year.
So here's the thing about
You
it.
don't say screwed me.
Well, 1 year I did. 1 year I did. Yeah, you got all mad at me too. It was pretty funny. So here's the thing about it. This is already difficult enough as it is because you show up on site. You got to drag all your shit out
Yeah.
there, and then you have about 20 minutes to come up with a recipe, not having any idea what kind of malts you were or anything you were going to get. And you have to tell them ahead of time how you're going to use your specialty ingredients in there. So it's very, very difficult just from a come up with a recipe in 20 minutes that you think is going to win a competition.
When you say
point of
20
view.
minutes, you mean an hour and a half, right?
And 90 minutes.
It might feel like 20.
But the other key to that is though, like it has to be to style, and I've already told you prior to brewing anything, prior to getting my ingredients, what style it's going to be.
Right.
So I can have a shitty brew day, and I'm still committed to this double IPA I told you, which is now a single IPA, and I could, but no, I've already committed to this,
and that's
whatever.
what you're going to get judged
And it's
by.
not an hour and a half, all right? It's not an hour and a half.
It is.
Well,
no, it's not.
Some people might take an hour and a half, but the pros are stepping
From
up.
the time
and-
we know everything we have to deal with to the time that y'all are coming around to our booth and bugging us, hey, turn in your recipe, is absolutely not an hour
I didn't
and a
have
half.
time to bug you this yet, but you're given the instructions at 9 o'clock and recipe turn-in is 10:30.
So talking about recipe turn-in, the way the recipe worked this year is it was on a dollar amount system. So we didn't realize, was it our yeast or was it our specialty ingredients? It was
I think it was the specialty ingredients.
I
We
think-
didn't realize we were being charged
being
for
charged
it.
for
Right,
those.
yeah.
So we go submit which we have a great Doppelbock recipe. We go to submit it, and with 10 minutes left, Nigel tells me, "Nope, you got to go reevaluate." We
You're
had
way over budget.
We had to cut $80. Well, you were given $200, so we had to cut
That's just a little over, right?
$80 with like 10 minutes left. So that's why us winning this thing is such just a crapshoot. I mean, what we chose to
So let's
do.
not jump to the end. Let's get to it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what y'all brewed.
So we did initially when I was given the specialty ingredients, I thought a Belgian double, because we've done a Belgian double and we've used cherries and I was craisins. Okay, they give similar flavors, and I thought, okay, we could do something interesting. But then I looked at my yeast options. I knew that my yeast options sucked. So at that point,
Yeah, for a Belgian, yeah.
for a
Five
Belgian
yeast
double.
options.
Well, okay, for a Belgian double.
No, but for a double, there was. I don't know. There was a good one.
There wasn't one. And then kind of Sandra and I kind of stuck our heels in with a Doppelbock. There were some other people on our team that kind of had some other ideas, but I just thought the specialty ingredients, the Doppelbock, was going to play really well.
It's ambitious. It's ambitious.
And doing a lager like that, I knew we were kind of big balls in it. We were going all. It was an all or nothing
What?
beer.
I'm sorry, I missed that part. What?
We were big balls in it.
Oh.
It was all or nothing with that. With that Doppelbock, it was
Bookmark
either going
that.
to be great or it was going to be
You
awful.
know what though? That's not the first
like
time
big
I've seen a
balls.
big lager win though. Too. The Horsemen of the Apocalypse won one year with an Imperial Pilsner.
Ooh, oh,
So,
nice.
and
Yeah.
that's a gutsy thing to do for this competition.
Yeah.
So and then what were the specialty ingredients that you used?
We used both craisins and the bourbon barrel or the barrel stave.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we did different that helped us a lot is we soaked both the craisins and the barrel stave in the bourbon.
That was some feedback I got from the judges that more teams would have benefited from doing that.
So we definitely got that, and we used Woodford Reserve. So you definitely got that Woodford, both in the craisins themselves. Like you got that craisiny flavor, but you also definitely got a wood and a bourbon flavor from our beer, and that was kind of the big thing is our specialty ingredients. I feel shined.
Yeah, and so we did an American brown, and we also did craisins and bourbon barrel because you got to be fucking crazy to brew with Fruit Loops. I'm sorry.
We have brewed. So so initially, like when I very first saw Fruit Loops, I was like, we have brewed with Fruit Loops. We have done an IPA with Fruit Loops. But then I was like, well, shit, I have 3 months before I turn this beer, and there's no way in hell I'm doing an IPA that I have to sit on that long. So that was it. Fruit Loops aren't that crazy.
So, without giving away too much, what we really thought was how you treat your special ingredients post fermentation and get them into the beer is going to be how you win this one, particularly the wood. I thought so. We're given Thank you, Beavis. So we were just given a piece of a barrel stave. So it was charred on the inside, and it had been used to age beer before, so probably fairly neutral.
And I think they were maple syrup barrels,
Yeah,
too.
they were originally for bourbon, most recently used for maple syrup.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So
That would have been interesting. To know.
I thought,
yeah.
the difference is going to be a lot of these people are going to take this barrel and the wood, and they're just going to throw it in there, and they're going to be disappointed with the wood character they got. So we thought how you treat the wood that goes into this is going to make all the difference. And Chris was a big part of how we treated our wood. Chris treated our wood so nicely.
Yeah.
I mean.
Give me a
Whoa,
reach around
easy
or
there.
what?
I mean, Chris and I spent a better part of an evening really just paying some
Working
good
this
attention
wood.
to our wood.
Working his wood
I
good.
mean, this wood needed so much attention that night, and
Right.
it really required more attention than we thought it would.
Yeah, and I said, I think we're done. He says, no, you get back in there on that wood.
But,
You
but
work
it finally
Y'all are
finished.
creeping me out, dude.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I was
It was done. It was happy. It was
So
finished.
we actually cut it up into cubes and we toasted it, and we paid really close attention to the level of toast that we got on it, because that the more reading I did about it, the more I realized that determines what type of flavors we got out of it.
Yeah.
I really think of all the beers that, and I gotta say, of all the times I've done this competition, this was the best field of beers that I've tasted. When we showed up for the People's Choice thing, I thought, oh shit, we're in trouble. All of these beers are really good. But I feel like your beer and our beer were the ones that the wood shined the best in it.
and just to
Definitely.
give you an idea of how the competition is judged, we did have a team draft Punk, whose base beer was actually sent to Minnesota to a homebrew competition and won the night before Iron Mash, just as a Belgian blonde.
Wow.
And the Iron Mash beer with the special ingredients in that they added, obviously post fermentation, unfortunately for them, did not win. But say their base beer, it did actually win. So it shows the need for the special ingredients to shine through in a
Well,
good beer
and
as well.
I think honestly, what is this? The 20th?
No, this year was 18.
Okay, 18 years we've been doing
Yeah, it's
this.
legal now.
The thing that I would say is that we've really made it a bigger deal for the reward ceremony, and we don't have like awards for food pairing and all kinds of different stuff. So everybody had great food. Everybody had great beer this year. It was an absolutely stellar event.
It really was.
I was really impressed this year. I mean, it's just gotten better every year.
So it's
And-
worth noting on that note too that that Come and Brew It Radio came in second place on the food pairing, and we would have tied for first or won if one of our own team members had voted for us.
The idea is you vote for teams other than yourself.
Okay, well,
I
You
tried to
know?
be fair. I voted once for myself because it was really great, and once for someone else because I thought they were really great. I'm sorry. I've apologized
The
enough.
food pairings have gone up. I mean, we had deconstructed steak and bacon pie, which I thought was phenomenal.
That
that
was
was
really good.
You know?
You know, there was all sorts of great food pairings.
No, there wasn't a beer that I had there out of what was there
26.
26,
yeah.
showed up. Yeah, they were all phenomenal.
They were
so-
great beers. I was so impressed walking around.
Oh,
Justin's wife, Dancy, made these New York cheesecakes for us that we put caramel and chocolate and bacon
and a cherry reduction.
and a cherry reduction that was just out of this world. Just absolutely
It was
fantastic.
The best cheesecake I've ever had in my
Excellent
entire life.
cheesecake, yeah.
So,
what a
i-
fantastic
if,
event.
If any of you guys are out there, if you're interested in doing a similar event, always reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you. And we do it different every year. There's no set of rules. And I think that's the whole fun about it is there is no rules.
You never know what to expect when you show up.
Yeah, we change
That-
it every year.
It
So-
takes a lot for me to drag all my shit somewhere to go brew. This is the
Right.
only reason that I do it anymore. I don't ever take my brewing stuff anywhere
Anywhere, yeah.
except for Iron Mash because you never know what to expect, and that's what
Yeah.
makes it worth doing.
Absolutely.
It's always fun and always really well
Absolutely.
done. And Nigel, I think, has taken it a notch up from where it's been in the last couple of years. I thought this year was my favorite year that we've ever done it. It was just really an excellent
All we
event.
got to do now is decide whether I'm doing it this year or not.
I think we've all
It's
decided.
your event,
Yes,
you
you
know.
are.
That's been who's been
And
running it the last
I
5
do have
years.
I do have to say, man, Nigel ran not only a great event, but this bastard here comes from judging on a Saturday afternoon, knows my team has won, comes into the shop and just leaves nothing on. I mean, there was no like hint at all, like So
yeah.
I'm like, well done, Nigel. Like
He's
you
got
know,
the ultimate poker face. He really does. Yeah.
and that was like there was nothing.
All right,
let
don't give me
on.
too much credit because I knew too. So
Well, well done, Stubby. But
I was also in denial.
so ultimately, just got to close up Iron Mash. I think that Sandra loves the when we heard that Come and Brew It finished second, I turned to her and I was like, man, like she goes, always the bridesmaid, and I was like, yeah, we didn't win. I just I just didn't believe we won. And then when Nigel said B Team Brewing, I was like, wait, what the hell? Like it was just a shock. But
Well, Stubby and I had been talking earlier. He says, "You know who should win first place?" I said, "B Team, right?" And he says, "Yeah." I mean, we both just thought that your beer was a clear first place.
So next year we will be A Team Brewing. And you guys can still be you
That
can still
means
be
you're
coming
gonna shoot at everybody's feet, and nobody's gonna get hit, and someone's gonna have to be drugged to get them there.
Yeah,
That depends on how
But-
superstitious you are.
That's
Their secret weapon will
dated
be on the pro
reference.
team. So
Ooh.
But one of the things that I would say though,
got a good point.
Denied.
one of the things I was trying to allude to earlier, it kind of went down a rabbit hole, but
It's not like you.
yeah. No, I'm just saying that I thought it was really interesting this year when you guys had out all the hops out there, and you could smell. It was just like, hey, these are
Yeah.
these
You're
are
talking
the
about at the
descriptors.
people's
Yeah,
choice.
at
Yeah.
the people's
Uh-huh.
choice.
Yeah.
We had all the hops out before you knew, and you could smell them versus one another. I don't know if I've done lots of gone to pick lots and stuff like that, but I don't know if I've ever had that many hops in one area
Yep.
where you could just smell them side by side by
Yeah,
side.
there was 10 cups of
some of
hops
them-
all on one table. You
And
just
some
walk
of
around and
them
see what they
were dramatically
Damn, I missed that.
different. It was
You know what
really
was
incredible.
cool?
They were up by the stage.
I was pleasantly surprised to
it
find that
until
some
the
of
very
them
end.
were very common hops.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sarts, EKG,
EKG was in there.
Mandarina Bavaria, Huel Melon, Citra Cryo Hop,
Yeah, I mean,
Warrior. Yeah, we used all sorts of stuff that just
and
regular
we
everyday
had
hop.
no idea
Nope.
on brew
Yeah.
date, none at all.
Nope.
No, it was really, really cool.
But
I
we
really
had the right
fucking
amount
loved
of
it.
information we needed to use
Yeah.
them. That's what I thought was cool about it. Okay, so let's move on from recent happenings. Let's get to. I don't know if we have the sound for this. I'm going to say we don't. Based on the demeanor of our production crew
Yeah,
tonight,
he's
I'm just
looking
gonna
like,
say that
what?
I
We're-
wouldn't say
we're
they're
gonna
running
go to
around with their hair on fire, but it's
unsolicited
close.
answers from the internet and
I've been looking forward to this one.
yeah. Yeah, so yeah, Chris brought this one to us, so I'm going to go ahead and read this in there. I think there's several different things to talk about in here. Oh, there's doors opening and hands waving.
Test.
Wait, are those
I'm going to carry on.
hostages?
So anyway, this will be my second
Hang
batch
on
and
and
first without a
quiet,
kit,
that's
so I may
right.
be running before I learn to walk. I'm attempting to do a saison with fig added during primary. Fig is not in season in the U.S., but I was able to find some packaged and partially dried. However, after I got it home, I realized it had been treated with potassium sorbate, which I know is a yeast inhibitor. So my questions are, I plan on using a starter, so do I need to worry about the potassium sorbate in the primary, as it doesn't seem to inhibit active fermentation? If I wash the fruit before adding to the primary and then additionally steep it for 60 to 90 seconds in the boiling wort before pureeing, would that have a noticeable effect on the levels of potassium sorbate? Lastly, I'm using yeast 3724, which is if I remember right, that's the Belgian Saison yeast, right?
I don't know.
It is.
Yes, that is
Oh,
correct.
sorry, I thought you owned a homebrew store. Which
I don't know
seems-
what I do nowadays.
Which seems to have a history of stalling. Could the potassium sorbate
I do a whole
prevent
lot of things not
fermentation?
very good these days.
So there's a few different questions there. One of them is how to use fig. The other is does potassium sorbate interrupt your fermentation?
Why the hell would you put fig in your
Yes.
damn beer to begin with? I'm just saying.
Well,
hey.
okay. Let's just go ahead and just
know.
assume that we want to put fig in our beer.
Paired
Just
with
eat some
plum and
fig
lactose,
Newtons.
it's not bad, but
Fig Newtons.
So I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start with that one. With if you want to put fig in your beer, how do you get it in there? And I think
Get the fig out.
this this guy is obviously a newer brewer, and he's wanting to put it in the boil because we all want to do fun things on brew day, and throw this in and throw that in, and we want to be mad scientists.
Not so much.
But
The real stars shine after brew day.
but I really feel
I like beer flavored beer.
I do too. I
So-
like beer flavored beer a lot.
If you want to add a fruit, though, we normally add it in secondary.
Yeah.
But he's specifically asking if I put it into primary.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna say is don't put it in primary.
I would as well.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this though: if it does have potassium sorbate and you put it in the secondary when yeast is already weak, is it going to ferment at all, or are you just wanting?
Well,
if
let's
you're
talk
worried
about
it
what
in the
potassium
secondary-
sorbate does.
Yes,
Yeah, it keeps the yeast from fermenting.
Does
doesn't
it keep it
kill
from
them.
fermenting, or does it keep it from reproducing?
No, it keeps them from fermenting. It
Okay.
doesn't kill them.
Okay.
So-
So it only inhibits them in their anaerobic stages, but it doesn't interrupt them in their aerobic stage?
That's a good question. I don't know that.
Because the aerobic stage is them.
But I know for the longest time
populating,
I
right?
thought that it killed them, but it
Okay.
does not kill them. It just keeps them from re-fermenting.
It
Or
neuters
from-
them.
Yeast prophylactic.
Yeah, pretty much.
The yeast prophylactic. It's good to know that microphone's not working. Good.
Check 1, 2, right? Yeah. So
All of a sudden, I hear
Listening on.
Shawn behind me.
so when you're looking for additives to put into beer, and you need to look for sulfites and sorbates and that kind of thing, and when you see them in there, you definitely, in my opinion, just need to keep them completely out of the fermentation process
Yeah, absolutely.
at all if those are in there. There's a lot of people out there that are gonna be like, I threw this in my beer and it worked fine, and I did that and it worked fine. There's a lot
Well,
of
and I
other
think if you throw it into the secondary, yeast is pretty
fermentation
much
should be
done
done,
already, and you're just
Yeah.
getting the fruit. It's
okay,
not going to matter.
but
with
there's
the
a better
sorbate.
way to do that. I think is
Yeah.
the thing, and what we've learned, especially with the Iron Mash competition, and the more I put things into beer, the more I realized that doing things post fermentation is the way to do
It's
it.
the way to go.
And something like that, where
Unless
there's
it's
any,
spices.
Does that-
spices.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
Well,
Spices I put
or
in. I think
better-
those are easier to put in
Well,
the boil.
I think in the boil because you
Yeah.
get the oils and all of that.
What about when you're putting your wood into beer?
Again, secondary.
Always put your wood in post fermentation. Yeah.
You
that
don't
would
want to
hurt-
stick
that would
your
hurt in the
it would
boil.
hurt in the boil.
Yeah.
But
Cool your wort before you stick your wood in.
So he is specifically asking, though, if it's already treated with the potassium sorbate, which is there to
No more dick
inhibit
jokes.
yeast, and therefore it would be assumed to also inhibit the
fermentation.
of, or the
You know,
presence of other bacteria
yeah.
and such. Is it worth it to put it into the boil for a little bit to pasteurize it?
here's the problem with putting it in the boil is that the fruits like that have pectins in them, and when you boil
set the
them, you
pectin.
set the pectins, and you're gonna get a very, very cloudy beer, and it's gonna affect the mouthfeel and the look and everything, and that's why there's so many reasons not to put things in pre-fermentation, and it's so much easier to put them in post-fermentation. That in secondary, like Stubby's talking about, once the yeast is done doing what it's going to do and you're just conditioning it, that it works great. Or by making a tincture or something like that is a much more reliable way
Yeah,
to do it.
but there is something to be said though. If you're putting raw fruit in your beer, there could be wild yeast in there as well. So there is some of that. You know.
Well, if the potassium sorbate is in there,
Well,
isn't
yeah,
that-
the potassium sorbate you're not gonna have to worry about.
right.
It. But
so,
so a lot of times, people will put fresh fruit. Fresh fruit is tough. I would rather put frozen fruit in there. You're less likely to
well,
have
you
problems.
take fresh fruit and you freeze it,
Freeze it
and then thaw it out. That helps break down the cell walls and get it in there anyway.
Yep.
That's still not going
But
to
I
kill off
just
everything.
don't like fruit and beer. So whatever.
This coming from the guy who has the raspberry wheat beer wedding beer store.
Well,
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's,
Well, his
that's
wife-
not for me.
His wife does.
Well, Lisa won. My wife won second place at Blue Bonnet a couple years ago when she was very, very a couple years ago. Shit, that was 7 years ago now. She was very, very, very pregnant, and won second place for her raspberry chocolate porter, I believe. Yeah, in the fruit category, which is difficult at Blue Bonnet.
Yeah.
Nice.
There you go.
So the last thing I want to address on this one is ask about why
And you
use
know how we did that?
3724.
Yes.
You want to know how we did that? We did.
Sure.
I helped her with the chocolate and raspberry.
Was this the one where you added propane?
No, that was a wit beer. No, we actually took frozen fruit and took chocolate
Baker's
chocolate, yeah. And
Looking like a
we
chocolate.
took all the frozen fruit and put it in a pan, in a saucepan, like a deep saucepan, and we simmered it for like 10 minutes with the fruit and the chocolate, and then poured it into the keg.
Well, see, and what we did with our craisins, or what I did with my half of the craisins that we did, is I just brought it up to about 160 or 165 in some water, which will pasteurize it, but it won't set the pectins, and so that.
You don't make a shit if your porter's cloudy.
I didn't brew a porter, so that works out just fine. My American brown was nice and clean and clear and beautiful, and won second place. So,
so I actually have to the second half or the last half of that the question there, the about the yeast.
The 3724,
The
that's what I wanted to get to.
The 3724 being notorious for stalling.
Yes.
What is that?
Well,
That's the Belgian Saison.
That's the
yeast
Belgian
from
Saison.
Wyzine,
It's a
from
yeast.
Wyzine.
You put it in beer to make beer.
But that's not important right now.
So we've had a customer a couple months ago come in and talk about how he had read that. He had heard another podcast, and I don't know who it was, but they did some different experiments with head pressure. And one of
Oh my God, it's not that one, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's
No,
not.
no.
Because what he's saying is correct.
Because
Shots
but
fired.
no, it's not that. No. So basically, what they found though is they did several experiments. One with an airlock and one with just I want to say it was aluminum foil.
Yeah, just like sanitized foil.
Just sanitized foil, and they found the one with the sanitized foil didn't stall out.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
There was just having an airlock was just enough head pressure.
Yeah, so that
the yeast would
particular
stall.
yeast, that's what brewers have found out, is that not only is the head pressure thing a big thing,
that is true.
it's also very oxygen hungry too. You got to really hit it with a lot of oxygen and then do like a quasi open fermentation basically. It's just
it's absolutely amazing that it does make that big a difference. It does make a difference, and
just
that's
that.
strength.
well, it makes a
That's
difference
strength.
with Weizen yeast too. Weizen
Oh,
yeasts
yeah.
are very reactive to head pressure. So
Absolutely, and that's how I won so many awards with Weizen beers.
But it's one of those. If you're doing a saison, use the Omega 5, 501, 500, the Seisenstein. That's a super great.
it's that Jewish saison yeast.
Every damn
Saison
time.
Stein.
Dean, thank you.
Stein.
That yeast is super great. It gives some really interesting flavors. Sandra used it in a plum saison that she was super happy with.
Oh well, Greg and I won saison with that.
Yeah, you did.
Well, last year was
Yeah,
it last year?
2 years.
2 years ago.
It was 18.
Ooh, that's a nitro beer.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go.
And it's got your name on it.
Yes.
All right. Well, we had
This
a
is
couple
my
of things.
nitro beer.
We had a couple of things lined up for just the tip here, but I think we're running a little bit long in the first half here. So,
I didn't know we had tips today.
well, some of us do work
Just-
behind the scenes.
Are we doing Greg's beers before or after the break?
Which
Let's
ones
do-
are Greg's beers?
You wanna,
I thought
you
that
wanna-
was being released
these
separately.
Guys.
That's
Yeah.
why these gentlemen are here.
Yeah. Let's get those guys in
yeah,
here.
yeah. Let's
They
do
can
that
have
right
my-
Uber's
now.
waiting
they can have my
outside,
price.
Let's do that
so
right
now.
just let us know.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not in the fucking outline.
No, I
man.
know.
I'm
Well, I
sorry.
didn't write the
It's,
outline, did I? So,
Well, I
yeah,
thought
no.
that's how we're doing it. I'm sorry. So we do
Get
have
over
we have our
here.
friends here from Cowtown Brewing.
Yeah,
what
I'm gonna let
we're
them
gonna
have
be
my
doing,
mic.
What we're going to be doing here with some breweries around the Metroplex is that we're going to be brewing some of Greg's recipes. As everybody knows, if you've listened to this show, Greg was an absolutely phenomenal brewer.
He was a witch.
He brought in countless numbers of beers in here that just made me shake my head and think, oh, my God, I'm not even close compared to what this guy is doing. So we've got his recipes. We stole his computer and we've hidden it
just
in a
his
cave.
beersmith.
We've hidden in a cave somewhere, and we're going to share his recipes with some local breweries. So we've got our friends here from Cowtown Brewing, which is one of our very favorite breweries, and they are the first ones to brew one of Greg's beers. So we want to have them talk about it and what we're going to do here. So
Yeah, so we brewed 3 weeks ago. I I'm trying to think of the date we brewed.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah. So by the way, we've got Shawn, we've got James, and we've got Nick all here.
I like how they're sharing.
They're
a
all
chair.
part of the day,
Looks really nice.
and they graciously allowed me to hang out and drink beer with them throughout the morning, and I did get to grain out, so I put some sweat and tears into this too.
You got to grain out.
I did.
All right.
Yes, I was allowed to.
You're allowed to grain
I was
out,
allowed to
okay.
grain out. Yeah. So as Brandon says, there's several breweries around Fort Worth that are going to be brewing and releasing one of Greg's recipes. We've got a variety of styles over the remainder of the year. Really, we've probably got enough beers now to take us close to the end of the year. We're going to do one a month, and we're going to start with Cowtown on March the 12th, which just happens to be Greg's birthday. And I reached out to Trish, his wife, this week and just checked that everything's going well with her and if she had a charity that she wanted to make the donations to. So she forwarded to me, she wants to make the donation to achservices.org. If anybody wants to go to that website and make a donation, there's very graciously received. They are the Child and Family Services adoption agency that they worked with when adopting their two boys. So it's very close to their heart, very meaningful to Greg, and I think it's going to be a great charity for us to work with. So like I say, we brewed about 3 weeks ago, and I'm going to hand it over to Shawn and Nick and James to talk about the beer.
Thanks,
Go.
Nigel. Before we get started, I just want to give a quick shout out to Fritz Rar for the Snowmageddon and the Paletta de Mango. It's helping me forget that on Stout night there's no cow tipper here. So just
Wow.
we can make a
felt
run. Yeah.
a little insulted that
Yeah.
I was not informed.
It's
it
all
would
right.
be Stout night.
This is an outrage as
Sure,
far as
Nick.
I'm concerned.
I'm sorry I didn't save any. It was too delicious.
Right.
Well, typically when a brewery comes on the show, they bring beers for us to drink. So
Oh, man.
just saying, guys.
good.
All right. Let's
Yeah, let's move on.
I still love
All
you,
right.
Sean.
Hey, so I'm gonna let James and Nick talk most about what we did here, but I want to start off by saying that this effort that we're engaged in with the other breweries that are doing this year is really close to my heart for a couple of reasons, but I guess primarily of everybody that knew Greg, especially in this room. I probably knew him the least amount of time, and the impression, the impact that he made on me and in my life in the short time that I knew him was tremendous. I still remember the first time I encountered him when I came in as a home brewer into Stubby's, and he helped me out with a couple of questions. And from that day forward, I felt like I'd known him forever. And I think he had that impact on a lot of people, and that's why what we're doing resonates with so many people. The other part of this is the day we opened Cowtown, my son was born 5 hours before we opened the doors, and he is also adopted. And the whole story of Greg and Trish and their adoption journey, and the impact that what happened to Greg after that was finalized is just always been a big tug on me. And when Nigel first reached out to me about what we're doing this year, I raised my hand immediately because I wanted to be involved, not only because Greg was made an impact on my life, but just the overall big picture of Greg and Trish's journey with the adoption of their boys. So we're super excited to be a part of this. Very honored to be the first to release this year, release on his birthday, and I can't tell you how much this beer means to me, and hopefully the impact it's going to have on his family. So
Cool. So, what style was it you brewed, guys?
We brewed a Weizenbach.
Cool. Nice. And I believe you got quite a special name for it, right?
We do. We're going to call it Wetzelbach. We're going to pronounce it that way anyway, but
Yeah,
Wetzel.
yeah, that's pretty cool to include Greg's name in there and the family name. So, what did you find with the beer? What sort of challenges, or what? How was Brew Day?
Well, the biggest challenge was Nigel was there for Brew Day. We had to get him out of the way. But other than that,
Actually, Nigel was incredibly helpful.
Not only was I there, I brought my homebrew, and you had to drink that and speak highly of it.
actually,
So-
the best part of Nigel being there was the breakfast tacos. That
Oh
you
yeah, I
brought.
did bring breakfast tacos. You're right. So
Very generous.
so that was the only reason they let me in the door.
I mean, that's usually.
Sandra's
enough
wondering,
reason.
are breakfast tacos every time you brew a Greg's beer, or just like a one-off Cowtown
That
thing?
depends if I get an invite to the brew day or not.
If you bring food, you're definitely invited.
Then no.
Love you, Nigel.
You're welcome.
But that is not a typical style for y'all to brew. You're not brewing with a lot of wheat normally, right? And
Well, it's not too far off the map. I mean, anybody that's been to Cowtown knows that we brew a lot of German styles, mostly lagers. But we also have a Berliner Weiss that has a significant wheat contribution. We have 2 hazy IPAs that have significant wheat contributions. So it's not like we've never had wheat in the brewery before. But this was definitely the biggest percentage wheat bill or wheat percentage of the malt bill that we've ever had. So yeah,
It was definitely over 50%.
For those who don't know what a Weissenbach is, what is it?
Oh, man, don't
it's
put
a
me on the
very
spot like
smart
that.
buck.
Yeah, there you go.
it's like a Dunkelweiss. Basically, it's a caramely version of a wheat beer.
Okay.
Basically, and,
Higher in alcohol
higher
typically, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a whole episode on those. That's why that recipe is in existence.
Yeah, that's right.
actually.
Yeah, because of the episode.
Stubby,
yeah.
Stubby brought back some Weizenbachs from Germany, and
Yep.
we did that. And Greg, in typical fashion, brewed 3 or 4 of them, I think, for us.
Yeah, so we brewed a dark Weizenbach version based on what we tasted, because again, as we've found out, what we taste fresh from Germany is going to be different to what we
Right.
taste over here. So we brewed based on, and the recipe that Greg designed was based on what we tasted fresh from Germany. And so our Weizenbach that we brewed last year was a great beer, made it through to NHC final round. And so, unfortunately didn't win, didn't place, but it's still a good beer. And so when we were,
I believe that's the year when we went up to Portland, wasn't it?
it was Rhode Island. It was last year. It was Rhode Island.
Was it last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we were going through Greg's recipes and offering up to the brewers to see which ones they wanted to brew, Shawn immediately hooked onto this Weizenbach as a possibility and turned it into fruition. So that's cool.
And Nick immediately said, "Are you crazy with all that wheat?
I
We're gonna put
really-
it in the mash tun."
Well, I really wanted to talk him out of it because I am not a fan of the Weiss beers. Just those yeast, those estery, that's just not my style. I am not into it. When he said we could do it with lager yeast, I was more on board. We did want to actually get a little bit of the Weiss yeast in there, but I guess
Austin sold the last brick
The
that
day
was available
before.
in town. Thank
Damn
you,
it,
Austin.
Jones.
So did you do a protein rest or anything like that, or was it a single infusion mash or
yes, single infusion.
single
mash.
infusion? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So if you are here local, make sure you get over and taste some of that. Personally, that is, in my opinion, one of those beers that you just cannot get a good example unless a local brewery brews it. Because by the time we get it, being brewed with Weizen yeast and all that, and really needing to be drank fresh, you just don't get anything over here that tastes the way it's supposed to taste. And that's the beauty, I think, of breweries like Cowtown that are doing these German styles that, you get to taste them how they're supposed to taste and not the way we're used to tasting.
This one will not taste like it is supposed to taste.
Yeah.
Okay, well, forget everything I
No.
just said.
Don't get me wrong. It's going to be great,
Yeah.
but it's not going to taste like it's supposed to.
And-
Like I said, the Weiss yeast is not there, so
And you sampled it yesterday, you said, right?
I did. I got a little sip of it yesterday, and I'm enjoying it quite a bit. Obviously, it needs some time to lager because we use lager yeast, but yeah, it's going to be good.
All right, so forget everything I said, but still go drink their beer.
Were there
Brandon,
any
that's That's a great point to bring up because at the end of the day, this is our interpretation of Greg's recipe. On a couple of levels, we had to make some decisions based on our capabilities and the available ingredients. We tried to honor the recipe as close as possible. We even had, Nigel dip his toe into the boil kettle to get a little authentic flavor. But at the end of the day, it's a tribute. It's not an exact replica of Greg's beer. And the thing to keep in mind here is that what we are doing is an effort to raise money for a charity that Trish has designated, and the proceeds of this beer are going to that charity. So I'd hope that people would come out and enjoy a solid beer inspired by Greg's memory, and not get too in the weeds about whether it's an exact match to the original recipe.
Yeah, and that's the one thing when we were discussing this project with the brewers, it's like we said, we'd love for you to commit to doing it, but commit to brewing a beer based on Greg's recipes. We know there's going to be some changes made from homebrew to commercial brew, but let's brew a beer based on his recipe and brew a beer that would be in that vein. And so, again, that's what we've done. Just a follow-up reminder, if you want to make a donation to the charity that Trish has designated, you can go to their website. It's achservices.org, and you'll hear that a lot more through the year as we do these episodes. We are planning to have the brewery that's brewing the next release on each month. I believe next month will be Brutal Beer Works. They're going to do Greg's Bock recipe. So that's the next one to look forward to. But March the 12th, Cowtown Brewing Company in Fort Worth. And keep your eyes on social media. There will be plenty of publicity coming out on this beer too.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys. We are going to go to break now. When we come back, we're going to get into a little bit of beer that Chris and I brewed, a Roush beer, quick comparison on that, and we're going to get into our main topic, which is stouts. So stick around, probably be about a 10-minute break, and we will be right back.
Yay!